So as you guys can see here, we are back on the interstate with my 2023 Jeep Wrangler Rubicon 392. As you guys probably know, if you are Jeep people, you'll probably understand when I say that, you know, Jeeps aren't really the best vehicles for highway driving or road trips. Yeah, they are a lot of fun to take on road trips, but are they the most comfortable? Probably not. So in this video, I wanted to talk to you guys about my opinions and thoughts on how my Jeep Wrangler Rubicon 392 handles on a long road trip and how it drives on the interstate. I've had this Jeep for about half a year now, and I did make a video like this previously whenever I first got it with my first impressions of how it actually handled highway driving. Now, after 4,000 miles of city, highway, and off-road driving, and after half a year of actually experiencing this thing, I wanted to revisit that topic and share my opinions with you guys all over again and see if anything actually changed. So for the most part, you know, I really still don't have any complaints about this Jeep. It's been absolutely amazing. Aside from one thing, which you guys can probably guess what I'm about to say, but of course it's the fuel economy. So as you guys know, with a 392 Wrangler, we get this thing that's called miles per gallon. I'm sure many of you guys are very familiar with that concept if you are Jeep owners or any kind of V8 owners for that matter. I'm actually averaging, believe it or not, 16 right now. Don't believe me? There it is right there, and we are actually going up an incline, which is why the current MPG is at 9. With my XJ, I would have to slow down to like 40 or 50 miles an hour just to get up this incline. Now my XJ, sometimes it does struggle going up inclines at high rates of speed. And if you guys heard right there, it just downshifted to 7th gear. So back to what I was saying with my XJ, whenever I went up this hill the last time, I actually made a video on this topic as well, but I had to go like 40 or 50 miles an hour. My XJ just does not like climbing up inclines at high rates of speed. Some people have suggested that I just need to adjust a kickdown cable, so I definitely still need to look into that. And obviously comparing my 392 to my XJ really isn't a fair comparison whatsoever, but I'm just trying to put into perspective how easily a 392 Wrangler can, you know, drive normally up an incline like this at 70 miles per hour on the interstate and, you know, pass cars or trucks if I really want to, all while being able to handle the turns with no issues whatsoever. A Wrangler really isn't supposed to be able to handle turns at speeds like this. As you guys know from previous videos, I do have experience driving a JK Rubicon, and with that thing I would have to slow down to around 50 as well if I wanted to climb up this incline, and I wouldn't be able to maintain, you know, almost 70 miles per hour going around all these turns, as you guys can see. The 392 does all of that effortlessly. Highway driving on this thing really is not an issue whatsoever, and even city driving is enjoyable. Now, another reason that I think it's so kind of impressive that the 392 has zero issues climbing up inclines like this on the interstate at high rates of speed and maintaining that speed and being able to handle all the turns just like this is because of how much it weighs. Now this thing weighs around 5,100 pounds, and 0 to 60 on this thing is like 4.5 seconds, which in my opinion is pretty insane. You wouldn't really expect those types of acceleration times from a vehicle that weighs this much, especially a Wrangler that's shaped like a brick for sure. Now, you know, once again, comparing to my XJ, that thing weighs around 4,200 pounds, and of course you guys know it has that 4-liter inline 6, the legendary 4-liter, and it does have trouble climbing up inclines like I mentioned, but you know, obviously can't get rid of my XJ, and obviously never planning to. Something else I wanted to touch on here is the visibility. Now, you guys know I had a Challenger Scat Pack before this vehicle right here, and when it comes to the visibility, the Challenger was definitely a little bit more difficult to drive and actually see what's going on compared to the Wrangler 392. Now obviously with the Wrangler, you basically don't have any blind spots whatsoever. You can get a good look right over there to the side and see that you can pretty much see everything. Like there's no blind spots whatsoever, which is one thing that I really love about having a Wrangler, is that I really don't have to be worried about hitting somebody that's in my blind spot. With the Challenger, you definitely had to, you know, probably double or triple check your blind spots just to make sure that there's nothing there. And with the Challenger that I had, I did not even have the blind spot monitors. With the 392, blind spot monitor system comes completely standard with the 392 trim of the Wrangler, which is very nice. It's basically just like a little triangle that lights up orange if there is a vehicle in your blind spot. As for the actual 6-month review of my 392 driving review, it's been a lot of fun, and I really can't stress that enough. I've been, you know, driving this vehicle more than pretty much any vehicle that I've ever had. You know, already put 4,000 miles on it in about half a year. I don't think I've ever driven a vehicle that much, and I really do enjoy driving this thing, you know, on and off camera as well. Overall, I say this in pretty much every single video that I make, but it is the best all-around vehicle that I think you can get. You know, it's amazing off-road. Obviously, that's what it's built to do, so it's very good at doing that for sure. And I definitely would like to do some more off-roading with this thing and bring you guys some of those videos as well. It's going to be a whole bunch of fun. Along with that, obviously, it's a whole bunch of fun to drive on the street as well. So, you know, I can drive this thing wherever I want. I just have a lot more freedom with this thing compared to the Challenger. Now, going back to the handling of the 392, you know, it does kind of feel like it is driving on a cloud, kind of. Like, sometimes it does feel a little bit like floaty, if you guys know what I mean. So you definitely do feel that you are driving a Wrangler. It definitely does still feel like a Wrangler, just a much more upgraded version of a Wrangler. Now, if you've never driven a Wrangler, you might be a little bit confused by what I just said. But if you do know what a Wrangler feels like and drives like, then you probably know that feeling of kind of like floating around the road and kind of, you know, feeling like you're driving a cloud basically, or driving on a cloud. And I will say with the 392 on the JL, it's definitely much improved, but you still kind of do get that floating feeling with the 392 Wrangler. I'm not even saying that it's like a terrible thing, it's just kind of something that I've noticed. You know, it's not good, it's not bad, it's just a neutral observation that I've made over the past half year of driving this thing. And pretty much what I mean by that is that whenever you go over a bump or, you know, anything like that, if you're doing a turn, it kind of like rocks back and forth a little bit. Kind of hard to describe the feeling without actually driving it, but that's kind of what it feels like. Then also when it comes to handling, especially turning, you guys can see there is some play in the steering wheel. I mean, I feel like this is pretty normal. You know, obviously Wranglers aren't going to have like super tight turning radius or a super tight steering feel. It's just not made that way. It's not made to feel like a sports car. And even with the Challenger, I did have sport mode, which kind of tightened up the steering. And, you know, obviously with a Wrangler, you wouldn't really expect to have that with sport mode. Of course, it does have the off-road plus, which kind of holds the gears longer and makes it downshift quicker as well. And just kind of overall gives it better performance, but I don't believe it actually changes anything with the suspension like the Challenger did. So over the past 6 months and the past 4,000 miles, I have realized that there are pros and cons to driving the Challenger and the 392 Wrangler on the highway. Overall, if I have to just talk about highway driving, I would give it to the Challenger, to be honest. But I'm not saying the Wrangler is bad by any means. Now, what I mean by that is I'm giving it to the Challenger for highway driving just because of how much easier the Challenger is to handle and maneuver in situations of high speeds, like on an interstate when you're going 70 miles per hour, and if you have to make any kind of sudden movements or accelerate or brake at a very rapid pace, then the Challenger will be better than the 392 Wrangler. Now, obviously the Wrangler, you know, obviously has a 392, it has 470 horsepower, and it can for sure accelerate to avoid any kind of situations that you could potentially run into. Now, you know, obviously not all of them, but it is very good at accelerating quickly. And if you have to outrun something, or if you have to accelerate quickly to avoid an accident, then you can definitely do that with a Wrangler 392. I would definitely not say that about my XJ or any kind of other Wranglers that are not the V8 models. The 392 is for sure good at accelerating and getting out of dangerous situations by using acceleration. Now, the same thing kind of applies to braking. Obviously, the Challenger will have and does have better brakes than the Wrangler 392, but I'm not saying that the Wrangler has bad brakes. It's a huge improvement over the JK Wrangler and an even bigger improvement over my XJ. So if I have to, you know, come to a stop very quickly without much notice, then I would feel more confident doing that in the Challenger as opposed to the Wrangler 392. But I still would feel comfortable stopping quickly with the 392 Wrangler as well. So, you know, obviously not saying that the Wrangler is bad, just saying that the Challenger is better on highway driving situations. The third aspect of what makes the Challenger better than the Wrangler 392 for interstate driving is going to be the handling. So obviously the Challenger, being a performance car, a coupe, just a two-door, it weighs almost 1,000 pounds lighter than the Wrangler. It is able to handle turns a whole lot better. Of course, when you're, going through turns at a high rate of speed, like 70 miles per hour on an interstate, then of course you want something to be able to handle those turns. Now, the Wrangler does a very good job for what it is, but of course, the Challenger is just gonna be better. There's no question about that. The Wrangler just weighs a whole lot more. It's shaped like a brick, and it's designed for off-roading. These aspects only apply to interstate driving. Obviously the Wrangler is a whole lot better at off-roading. Now, I would never be able to do this in my XJ or even a JK Wrangler. But, obviously the 392 doesn't have any issues whatsoever passing, even going up an incline like this. And we're still in 8th gear. So, this thing blows my mind quite a bit. Now, on the topic of visibility, I also wanted to mention that the Wrangler obviously sits a whole lot higher than the Challenger, and it also sits a whole lot higher than the, base model Wranglers as well. I think if my math is correct, it sits about 4.5 inches higher than a Wrangler Sport. And in my opinion, I think that's a pretty big difference, just comparing, factory ride height, and it really does make a big difference. Now, the reason I wanted to bring that up in this video is because sitting so much higher, I think definitely helps me have much better visibility of what's going on around me, because I can see over cars if I need to, and I can just, obviously just see everything around me. And one thing that I will say though is that the full-size spare tire in the rear does kind of block the rear visibility just a little bit, if you guys can see that right there. So if there's a car directly behind me, I most likely won't be able to see it, and sometimes I do find myself having to kind of check the side mirrors and kind of looking way to the side to see if there's anything behind me, if I feel like I can't really see it in my rear view mirror. So that's kind of just like a minor inconvenience, and I'm not saying that it's bad, but I also wouldn't take the spare tire off just to have better visibility, because it's really not that bad whatsoever. It's just kind of a minor inconvenience that I've noticed over the past half year of driving this thing. So overall, my thoughts on driving my 392 Wrangler over the past 6 months on interstates, really, my thoughts haven't changed whatsoever since my first impressions. It's still amazing, it's still fun to drive, still handles very well, and still exceeds my expectations a lot. Now, another aspect of interstate driving with a V8 Wrangler is the drone from the exhaust. So my 392 actually came without a headliner, and I did install an aftermarket headliner, as you guys can see right there. And in my opinion, it does look a whole lot better, but I didn't really notice a huge sound difference. I did notice a sound difference, it just wasn't as big as I was expecting. But even with that, the actual road noise isn't really too bad. Obviously, it is going to be a little bit worse than a coupe or a sedan or anything like that, just because of the shape of the Wrangler, but it really isn't that bad whatsoever. I would say the road noise and wind noise is probably worse than the actual engine sound, because obviously with the engine sound, you can just hit a button and the valves will close, and it'll be pretty much silent. All you'll hear is the road noise and the wind noise. And I will say there's no drone whatsoever. If you get like an aftermarket exhaust, then maybe you will get some drone, but pretty much with every single exhaust system that I've seen for the 392 Wranglers, they all are able to keep the factory valves for the exhaust. So even if you get a louder exhaust, you can still hit that same button and close the valves and make it quiet, and not have basically any engine sound. Something else about that topic is that if the valves are closed and you accelerate at a very rapid pace, then the valves will automatically open and it will be loud. But right after that, they will automatically close back up as long as you have it in the valves closed mode. And to be honest, with the exhaust valves, it actually is a pretty big difference. Not really sure how well it's going to show up on camera, but right now the exhaust is open. I'll go ahead and turn it off. I'll close the valves. I can't hear the engine at all right now, and I'm not even exaggerating. Like, I can't hear the engine. All I hear right now is road noise and wind noise. If I accelerate just a little bit, still can't hear it. But if I step on it, then it will open up the exhaust automatically. So I'm gonna go ahead and open up the valves because I like listening to that V8. There we go. I do hear the engine now, but there's no drone. So it is very comfortable when it comes to sound levels. I do hear the engine because I want to. If I didn't want to hear it, I could go ahead and press that button right there, close the valves, and I wouldn't hear a single engine sound. So there you have it, guys. That is my 6-month and 4,000 mile review of highway driving with my 2023 Jeep Wrangler Rubicon 392. No issues whatsoever. I get very good miles per gallon, and yeah, it's been an amazing vehicle so far. Hope you guys enjoyed that review, and I hope you guys enjoyed hearing my opinions on the 2024 Jeep Wrangler Rubicon 392. And if you guys have anything you would like to share or add on to this video, I definitely would like to hear your opinions down in the comment section below. And make sure you guys subscribe for more 392 Wrangler and Jeep Cherokee XJ videos. Thanks for watching.